Well, the story of my life is this. I'm going to have to make 2 videos, and if I do, I'll name this part 1, and I'll name the other one part 2, and hopefully there won't be a part 3. But anyway, I've had a rough life. I've tried to explain through the videos, and I've had some good times, of course. I had a horse at 11 years old, and in the 80s when John Wayne was the star on TV, and horses, everybody wanted a horse that didn't have one, and I had a horse. But it was great. I loved the horse. I loved riding him. His name was Lamb Chops, and called him Chopper, and he was a very good horse. But not a usual childhood for somebody who grew up in my town of where I live now, and this is where I lived 56 years ago. So I had a commute to the horse. The horse didn't live with me. It lived on a farm, and I would go there on the weekends or at the school and all that. And I was never on the sports team because I had to choose between sports team or a horse. I couldn't do both. So sports was out. When you have a horse, you don't choose sports. But the horse, at that young age, it got a little boring because I couldn't bring people to the farm, my friends or anything. I brought friends, but very few, and only like one day out of the whole time I ever owned the horse. They went for one day, and it wasn't like an everyday thing or something. But so at a young age, you want to be around your friends and stuff. And the weekends I spent at the farm and stuff like that, and it was all constructed. The only reason I got the horse is because my mother couldn't stand me. And when I'm at the farm, I'm not with my mother. So it was a way of getting rid of me. And at the same time, I didn't complain because I was at the horse and I'm not complaining. So, and I didn't know that then, but I know it now, But it was just their way of getting rid of me. And go let him burn off his energy and play with the horse. Stuff like that. When I almost died riding the horse, I think they were upset I didn't die. But, whatever. So, and I rode the horse with the cast on, so it didn't matter. But, later on in life, I dropped out of grade school. We only had grade school, then we had high school. The 7th to 8th area, mid-school, whatever you want to call that, was all joined in the same school. So it was like you go in high school. High school was 7th grade to 12th, But it really wasn't because the credits and stuff on the courses you take don't start counting towards your degree until 9th grade. But I didn't go to 9th grade. I only went to 8th grade. And I went through hell with that, I went upstate to schools where I got beat up and hitchhiked on the road. I'm by myself, 14 years old. I got $5 in my pocket. I'm limping because I got beat up, and I'm hitchhiking on the streets of upstate New York. And I don't have a map. There's no GPS. You just hope you're going in the right direction. That's all. And I follow the train tracks because they lead to somewhere and stuff like that. But it was a very difficult childhood. One that I would gladly relive again if I got the opportunity. I would not want an easier childhood. So, and I spent time with my father, which now I'm finding out isn't my father. But anyway, I went at 20. I got my GED, and I went to Nassau County Community College. At first, I didn't know where I was going, what my degree was going to be, but I used to zero in on accounting. My uncle was a senior vice president of Chase Manhattan Bank. He worked in the city, in downtown the city, and he was rich, and he had an accounting degree. So I'm going for accounting. Yeah. And no, when you're 20, you don't hate money. You love money. I hate money now, but I love money then. So, I went for an accounting degree. I didn't graduate Nassau. I was shy of one course. I had to take a 4-credit course, which was like a science course, to get 4 credits, and then I could graduate Nassau. And I went to Hofstra, which was right across the street, and they accepted my credits because they had a deal with Hofstra to take the credits from Nassau. So I took advantage of that deal, and I went to Hofstra, and I got a 4-year degree. And for the most part, when I filled out a resume, I never even put Nassau on it. I just said 4-year degree from Hofstra, But anyway, and I can tell you legions and legions of stories about Nassau and Hofstra, both of which I really had no friends, and both of which I was a commuter student. Nassau didn't have a choice; it was a commuter school, so very hard to make friends, And again, it was like the city, Your friends live in East Meadow, Westbury. They live all over Creation, and yeah, whatever. I don't like it that much. So I spent most of my time in Eisenhower Park, Field 6, parking lot 6, where I did my homework and studied, and I sat in my car, and for a good portion of the time I had a ferret, and I sat in the car with the ferret, and the ferret would lay on top of me and go to sleep, and I would read my books. That was me sitting there. I drank back then. Sometimes I have a drink, but not really. It was unusual, very unusual if I did. And I smoked pot, though. A lot of pot. A lot of pot, though. So, it was illegal then, so you gotta watch out, But, I don't know. My point is, I get out of school, out of Hofstra, I get a job. It took a while to get a job, actually. It wasn't not easy to get a job. Because the minute you get out of school, they're like, oh, you got a degree. Oh, what's your work experience? Nothing. So they're like, nah, call us when you get some. No, sorry. But anyway, I finally get a job. I was turned into a temp. I worked a temp job, and that's why I got to see a lot of the different jobs out there. The NFL, Nissan, HIP, all these different jobs I did as a temp. And I could tell you stories about all my work history, but I'm not really here to talk about that. What I'm here to talk about is 1999, I bought NewYorkLotto.com. If you spell out New York, Lotto.com. I bought that. I bought it through Network Solutions for $35. Frankly, I was legal. It was a legal buy. Nobody could take it away from me, and and they didn't make my life difficult with as far as using it and creating a website and doing the things I did do with it, which was sell tickets and give results and stuff like that of the winning numbers. And the only reason I got into that, the only reason I went to buy that .com was because it was a nightmare to check winning numbers, and they only could check winning numbers in the newspaper or hand the attendant your ticket and they run it through the machine, or which back then, how when you run a ticket through the machine now and it's a winner and then the machine goes, banana, so you got a winning ticket. Well, back then they didn't go banana, and the reason they go banana now is because some of those attendants said, oh, your $1 million ticket, it's a loser, you don't want it, right? Yeah, he went and collected the $1 million. You were clueless, you didn't even know you won, and he stole your money. So now that's why the machine goes, banana. So anyway, the reason was you couldn't check, you had to call a 917 number. It was like $1 a call to get the winning numbers. And I didn't do it that much, so I don't know how to do it. And if you didn't get the winning numbers, you had to recall and spend another $1. So if you couldn't get the numbers, you couldn't write them down quick enough. They wouldn't find it quick on purpose. So I was mad about that, and I really had a pet peeve that I hated throwing away lottery tickets I didn't check. You know, how many times you hear at the end of the year, you know, like, oh, we got this ticket outstanding, it's got a week. Somebody can come up with this ticket in a week, they can collect $10 million, whatever. You know, and usually they don't come up with it, you know. They washed it, they did whatever they did with it, and it's gone. And, you know, that was really bad. And in that time, only New York Lotto existed in New York. Powerball was in Connecticut, and Mega Millions didn't even exist. So I'm just setting the stage that I own New York Lotto, the only game in New York. And the Lotto jackpots were small compared to Mega Millions and Powerball, you know. And they would have lines and lines of people on the border of Connecticut and New York when the first store over the border would have lines, and when the Powerball jackpot was huge, you know, people would go there and buy a ticket. They would give their friend money, the devil, and they try to put their friend together and make a whole pool of tickets, and one person goes up and buys 100 or 200 tickets, you know, this kind of thing. But that's when they didn't have Powerball in New York like they do now. So, anyway, the government knew about me. New York Lottery knew about me. I called them the day I bought it. You know, I bought it for $35, and the next day after I bought it, I called them. I said, "You want to buy it for $1 million? You know, like, you want to buy New York Lotto for $1 million?" And then I cursed them out. I'm like, why the fuck could I buy this? Why was this available? How come you didn't buy it before I did? You know, it's your name. You know, it's like stupid they didn't buy it. And I had the head of security, the guy that sits on the board of directors at the lottery, and he said, "Oh, we thought the internet was a fad." They didn't want to buy the name because they thought it was a fad. Idiots. So, you know, and then I told him about why I bought it. You know, I couldn't check numbers, and I'm like, "You're really good at selling numbers, but you're really shitty at checking them." You know, and that little machine you use now with the scanner, that's because of me. I put them in the I didn't invent the machine, but I put them in the direction of correcting the error of not being able to check your ticket. So now it's easy to check your ticket when the thing works. That's a whole nother nightmare. But, you know, and they didn't have a .com on the ticket. They after my .com, they came up with mylottery.org, and they put it on every ticket you bought had the .com and the .org, and you could go on the .org and check your winning numbers, and that was another way of checking your numbers. So they were trying to help. I set them in the right direction, and now it's .gov, it's not .org, it's mylottery.gov. And now they have a barcode. They didn't have the barcode either. Now they have the barcode that you can check with the scanning machine. So it's working. But so when Powerball and Mega Millions was developed, it was invented pretty much the same week that Powerball came to New York. Both games entered New York's sphere of lottery, and it pretty much put me out of business. You know, not so much that I wouldn't sell lottery tickets. It's just I couldn't sell Mega Million or Powerball tickets on my website. Not because, well, it was illegal, but the problem with the Powerball and the Mega Millions was it's a multi-state game. And all I needed was like Texas or buttfuck Florida sue me for selling tickets. You know, New York would have left me alone. They didn't care. They knew I was there. But Texas or Florida, a scumbag state like that, they would have sued me. And I'm a little guy. I can't defend myself against a state, you know. And I had other lawsuits that came in. See, confirmation. I had other lawsuits that came in, and I didn't hire a lawyer. I answered their drafts, or whatever you want to call them, and I answered my own. I wrote a letter and sent it to them, and I never heard from them again. So, but that's part 1. Look for part 2. Lottery Part 1.